Hi friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. Have you ever wondered how to make the hunter star, but you've been intimidated by it? Well, I'm here to help you, the beginner, make this. Now, if you're an advanced quilter, you can probably do this in your sleep and be lickety split done. But for those beginners out there who've been curious how to make this, I got you. So for today's quilt, for the size I make in the video, which is 60 by 68 inches, you're going to need 22 10-inch squares of a print and 22 10-inch squares of a solid. Now, if you couldn't tell already, I just used scraps. So I used scrap 10-inch squares, and then I had leftover layer cake for the solid. It works out perfect. So it'll yield you 44 squares, but you don't need all 44. You just need 42. That will give you that 60 by 68 with the borders. But if you don't do borders, you can get a quilt that is 48 by 56. So anyways, if you want to make a bigger quilt, then you're just going to need a whole layer cake of a print and a whole layer cake of a solid. And you can get a quilt that's like 96 by 112 or something of that sort. It's like 12 across by 14 down, which yields you a pretty giant quilt that'll fit on a queen and king bed. Anyways, you could also make this in solids, just two colors. So you can have a solid green and a solid black, and they always look amazing. Like they do, I'm telling you. The solid two color hunter stars look amazing. So have fun with it. It's your own. Again, 22 10-inch squares that are a print and 22 10-inch squares that are a solid. I used a half a yard for my first border, which is my stopping border of the black color. And then I used 3/4 of a yard for my second border, which are 4.5-inch strips. You don't really need all that. You'll have a remainder, but I always overcut so that I know that I have enough. Anyways, let's get to doing the hunter star in a very easy way. As I said, a beginner can do this. You out there watching today's video. The things you will need. Now, I did not use a whole layer cake for this project. I used 22 print squares and 22 background squares. You can use a full layer cake or as many squares as you want that'll equal, 6 across, 7 down, or 8 across, 9 down, or even a whole layer cake that will give you 12 across by 14 down, gives you a large quilt. I'm just making a small lap as an example for you guys how to make the blocks to make this quilt. The next thing you're going to need is, if you have one, a rotating mat. But I will show you how to do it if you just have a regular mat. But I'm going to use a rotating mat for this. Then you need your ruler and your rotary cutter. Make sure you have a ruler that covers from edge to edge, right here, corner to corner. You want it to be able to cross the whole entire thing. And then obviously your rotary cutter. And if you have one, an 8.5-inch square ruler would be nice. But if you don't have one, I will show you how to cut without the 8.5-inch ruler. So we're going to start by taking one of your squares, that is your print, and one that is your background. And we're going to stack them on top of each other, right sides together. These are 10-inch squares. So again, you can make it with your scrap fabrics or just half of a layer cake and half of a layer cake of your solids, or however you want to do this. We're going to start by laying this on our mat. And we're going to lay our ruler on here, and we're going to cut from corner to corner one time, just like that. I'm going to carefully separate my two pieces like this. And I'm going to take my ruler now, and I'm going to come in on this edge right here, and I'm going to come in 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches is our magic number throughout this whole thing. And we are going to make a slice. I'm going to separate that. I'm going to rotate my mat all the way around. And now I'm going to cut this other side. Again, from the cut edge in the center, we're going to cut in 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches from that mark. So we're going to go ahead now, line it up, make sure everything's good. 2.5 inches. I'm going to separate that. Now here's the fun part. I'm going to go ahead now and turn my mat a little bit. I'm going to line my ruler up right here at 2.5 inches from the edge of this piece right here, 2.5 inches from that. And I'm also going to look at my 45-degree line, which is right here. It's nice and straight. So I'm 2.5 inches in right here on that edge. And I'm going to make a cut. I'm going to try not to cut this piece right there. Now I'm going to turn my ruler and myself, and I'm going to go to 2.5 inches from this piece right here, this bottom one. It's very simple, that 2.5 number. All right. Now I'm going to turn the whole entire thing, and I'm going to repeat on the other sides of this. So I'm going to cut 2.5 inches. My 45 is straight, 2.5 inches right there. And then turn it one more time and cut 2.5 inches right here. So that leaves you with this weird looking amount of cuts. All right, so the next thing to do is I'm just going to move these out of the way. Oops. Go somewhere. Go somewhere. I'm going to slide everything out of the way, and I'm going to take a colored piece, and I'm going to stick it over here, just like this. Then I'm going to take one of these ones and take a colored piece right there. Now you can see I have 2 arrows. Now I'm going to take and leave the colored piece here, but take my background and stick it over here. Then I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Background in this pile, colored piece in this pile, just like that. Now I'm going to go on to this side. Now I want the opposite, so I'm going to make an opposite image. So I'm going to take the black one from the bottom, place it over there. Color one from the top, place it over here. Color one from the top, place it over there. And I want my black one from the bottom right here. So you're going to get 2 blocks every time you take 2 pieces. You get 2 blocks. And this is the block we're going to make. Okay? So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and show you how to sew together. Wow, I was just going to say that. How weird am I? I'm going to show you how to sew these together. So let's go to the sewing machine. Due to my filming capabilities, we're just going to put the whole block right here just so that you can see we are going to sew it back together just like this. For now, I'm going to remove this piece and I'm going to remove this piece. I'm going to set them aside. We're just going to work on these sections right here. We're going to start with this piece right here. So we're going to take these 2 pieces and we're going to put this right sides together. And what you're going to do is you're going to be leaving a little tail. It's kind of hard to show on camera. You're going to be leaving a little tail that's about 1/4 inch above and 1/4 inch below. You'll know that it's 1/4 inch because if it lands right here in the V at your needle, you're at 1/4 inch. So my needle comes in literally at that V. Sew down it. And then we're going to press this always towards the background. So I'm going to press it towards my background. Unless your background fabric is a white, then I would suggest everything go towards your print fabric if your print isn't very dark. Is darker than your background, which is a white. All right, now that that is sewn on, you can see it makes a nice straight line, and then I have a little triangle sticking out. That's what we want. So now I'm going to put it back where it goes. And we're going to sew this other side on here. So I'm going to turn this whole entire thing, bringing it in front of me to look like this. We're going to go right sides together. Again, I'm going to leave my little 1/4 inch piece out here and 1/4 inch piece out there, sticking up. Sew it through. You can see that my stitch came out exactly at that, and it went in exactly at that V. We're going to go ahead now. If it wasn't pressed, it looks like this. It looks like vampire teeth. All right, we're going to go ahead now and finger press that towards the background. I am now going to take this and place it over next to my triangles, which are on this far side of the camera. because I don't need that in my way at the moment. We're going to grab this one right here. So we're going to set this in front of us. Same exact procedure. Right sides together. We're going to leave that little tiny peeking out, 1/4 inch. We're going to go ahead now and press this towards the background, or which is, from, in my case, the black fabric. And there's that. So now we're going to turn it around, and we're going to sew the other side on. Again, leaving out that little piece. All right. Press it towards the background. And now we have a piece like this. So I'm going to bring the rest of everything up here so that you can see it. Right here and right here. So it goes, the smallest side obviously touches this right here on both of them. But you can see that it's bigger. I'm going to take this over to the iron, and I'm going to give it a good press at the iron so that it stays nice and flat. Now that they are nice and flat, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the dog ears. Just a pair of scissors. Just try not to snip the rest of your block. So cut those dog ears off, and then grab the other piece and cut the dog ears off of that. Okay. So now it's time to connect these pieces. What we're going to do is I'm going to move this one out of the way, and I'm going to take and worry about this one only. Now, if you are not good at measuring the distance on your own with just eyeballing things, then I would suggest the fold in half method. Let me show you my measuring method first. There is about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch on both sides of this one. I'm going to go ahead and sew this on. But if you are not good at eyeballing, okay, so here it is. We're going to fold this in half right here and make a little tiny crease. So that little tiny crease is going to be our registration mark. Fold this in half. Oops, it's picking up the dog ears from the table. And then make a little registration mark in the center. Open it up and match those two registration marks. Now I know for a fact, you can put a pin right there if you need now, but I now know for a fact that that is center. So what I'm going to do is line it up right here. And sew it on. All right. We're going to snip that apart. And I'm going to take this over to the iron, and I'm going to press this towards my background. So towards the background. And then this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to press this under and towards my background fabric. So towards my black, which is my background fabric. Like that. Okay, so I'll be right back. All right, now I have pressed. Now it's time to take and put the two pieces together. So let's marry them. We're going to go right sides together. And the cool part about the way we pressed everything is when you line this up right here, the seams are nested. So I have nested seams. They butt right up. Cannot move them or adjust them. They are nested right up. So I'm going to sew right up to that first seam. I'm going to leave my needle down and make sure that my bottom seam is nested. And run all the way down the whole entire thing. So now I'm going to go ahead, and this is going to get pressed towards the black, so towards my background. So for now, I'm just going to finger press it, just like this. But we're going to take this over to the iron and put it together, and here we have one block. So let's show you how to make another block. I have only grabbed the pieces that I need to sew at the moment, which are the long row pieces. So again, we're just going to take this. I'm going to remind you one more time how this works. Right sides together. We're going to lay this on here. You're always going to leave a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch there. The needle should land right in the V. Okay. And we're going to press that towards the background or the black. I'm going to turn the whole thing. Okay, it goes like this. Again, we're going to sew in to the valley and come out of the valley. I'm going to go ahead and press that, and you can see that it's nice and straight across the top. If it's not, then take it apart and try again. But it should be pretty relatively easy to do. Even a beginner could do this. All right, so I'm going to set that aside until I press it. I'm going to move on to this. So we're going to go ahead and do that same exact thing again. Just like so. Again, I'm going to create some vampire teeth. You know, if you leave it down, it's vampire teeth. So you know, just like this, if you left it down, it works just the same. I'm going to go ahead, line it up where it needs to be. Okay, so again, I'm going to press these all towards my background. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to go ahead now at this point and cut the dog ears off because they are not needed. Here is the block right here. So again, I'm going to move one piece of it out of the way. We're going to work with this one first. You could either find your center like this, folding this in half, create yourself a little crease. The fabric is pretty good at creasing. Go to the other side, or the other piece, crease that in the center, take those two creases, line them up just like this, and you'll see there's about 1/2 inch on this one and 1/2 inch on the other. My background or my print fabric actually wasn't exactly 10 inches, but it still works as long as it's about 10 inches. The pinked edge on these were bigger than 10 inches, and these were slightly less for me. But I am working with scraps as an example. So this is going to go ahead and get pressed towards the black, which is my background. Okay, for now, I'm just going to move this out of the way. I'm going to grab that other section, just like this. Or you could measure eyeballing it wise. So I'm going to eyeball about the same on both sides. Just going to hold this. I'm going to go ahead and sew it on through. Okay, and then this one is going to get pressed towards the black. So I'm going to press it down towards my background. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press this. To know that you got this correct, you'll see when it's pressed that this background is bigger than. So it's bigger than the square. That's what you want. You want it to be sticking out further on both pieces. So you can see it's sticking out further. It's not much on mine, but on yours it will be sticking out quite a bit further. We're going to go ahead now and put these right sides together, just like this. We're going to nest up these seams, so you can throw a pin in it or a clip or however you want to do it. So you nest right here and you nest right here. They lay perfectly because those seams are in opposite directions. So I'm going to go ahead, line it up. I'm going to hold my nested seam. Oops, I moved it. I'm going to stop for a second, readjust my seam. Fix it real quick because it kind of went funky on me. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead now and press towards my background. So this whole piece is going to go towards my background. Just like that. And I'm going to iron it, and I'll show you the next step. All right, like I said, rotating mat helps this. Here's the next step. We're going to take one of our finished blocks. We're going to take that 8.5 inch ruler. This is what makes it so much easier, is the 8.5 inch. A lot of us have these in our sewing room. I'm literally going to put the diagonal 45 line right here on that center seam. I can see my piece sticking out. If you used full 100% 10 inch squares, they're going to stick out a lot more than this. Again, mine weren't like 100% 10 inch squares. I'm going to line that diagonal seam up. I'm going to hold my block. Oops. Cut two sides. turn the whole thing, cut 2 sides, lift my ruler, and swipe away the bad, and there we have an 8.5-inch block. So let's cut this next one, showing you don't need an 8.5-inch ruler. We're going to go ahead now and find the diagonal. Let's put this where it lands on a 1, right here. So I'm going to line this up right here and right here on the diagonal. Now, if you don't have a rotating mat, this works just on this mat as well, as long as you line it up with your 45 that's on your mat. All right, so here's my 45. I want to make sure that the point is landing right there, and it is. Turn my whole entire thing to where it's visible to me. I'm going to go ahead and start with this edge right here, lining it up on the line, making my cut. Turn my ruler or my mat. I'll line this up on the line right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and find 8.5 right here, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on 8.5 right here. There. And then I'm going to turn it one more time, and I'm going to go to 8.5, which is right here. Gonna line it up, lining it up. And there I have an 8.5-inch block. You can lay this on here and see if I did a good job. And look at that, I did. It's perfect all the way around. So that's how you would do that. It's going to be very close. The only thing that you're really cutting off is your outside pieces. These pieces are really close to 8.5, so you really can't screw them up. So that when you have 2 blocks together, they're going to be exactly the same and you're going to have points. But we'll get to that point when we lay these out. Let me show you how to cut this block if you don't have a rotating mat. All right. No rotating mat, no problem. Stack your 2 squares up like this. Okay, they're nice and stacked. Again, you can see mine are a little on the wonkiness side, but I'm making it work, and if I can make it work with even the slighty bit of wonkiness, you can do it too. They are stacked on top of each other. My points are touching here, and my points are pretty much touching there, which is fine. All right, lay your ruler corner to corner, like that. Make your first cut, separate them very carefully, because you don't have a rotating mat. Turn this piece. Come in 2.5 inches. That is your magic number, 2.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. While we're here, I'm just going to turn this very carefully. I'm not adjusting my pieces at all, just turning it. I'm going to go ahead and cut 2.5 there. I'm going to turn this whole entire thing around. I know we're making a giant turning mess. And I'm going to cut 2.5 inches off of the other side, just like that. And now I'm going to lay it back in its spot, which was right here. Okay, so there's one, done. Now we're just going to do this next one. We're going to come in 2.5 inches, just like that. I'm going to separate that. You could also turn your whole body and lay it like this. So 2.5 inches. I don't recommend cutting towards yourself, because if you jump the ruler with your rotary blade, you can chop your fingers off. So I don't really recommend that, but if that's what you want to do, you can. Come to the other side right here, 2.5 inches, make that cut. And there we have our pieces. We turn this whole thing. This was our blocks stacked up like that. Now all we have to do is separate and sew. So we're going to make a pile here, grab this one out of this pile, grab the blacks out of this pile, like this. Then we're going to grab the black out of this one, colors off of this one, and the black off of this one. And here are our 2 blocks, and I'm going to sew them, but I'm going to spare you that because I've already showed you how to sew them. This one goes to this one goes to that, then this whole unit gets sewn together. This to this, that to that, then this whole unit gets sewn together. Fairly simple. Like I said, a beginner can do this. Once you can do this, you can do any diamond blocks because this is pretty simple. So I'm going to sew this and I'll meet you right back here. So now you're like, hey, Tiffany, I'm also daring like you. I want to cut multiples and I want a chain piece because I want to get it done faster. Well, okay, so I'm going to stack 2. I don't really recommend more than 3 backgrounds and 3 solids, or 3 backgrounds and solids. 3 background solids and 3 prints. Right now I have 2 and 2 just because I'm trying to keep these together. But what if you wanted to chain piece and cut multiples because you want to get it done faster? So here we go. I have 4 stacked here. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to cut just like that. Same thing as before. Oh, look at that. It missed the neck right there. Okay, separate it. I'm going to go ahead and cut one side 2.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and carefully separate that. Spin my whole entire mat. Cut 2.5 inches. Separate that. We do have to separate them because we don't want to cut into our previous piece. Ooh, it kind of moved and adjusted when I turned the mat. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut 2.5 on my diamonds. There's 1, 2, turn the whole entire thing. Get number 3 there. And last but not least, the 4th one. Just like that. Separate, make sure you have everything cut. You do. We're going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to show you the chain piecing way. So I'm going to go ahead now and separate, come on, right there, all those. And then the second pile is all those. Now, there we go. Second pile, first pile. Just trying to keep them all nicely stacked up, you know. All right. And then the blacks can go over here. And they can go over here like this. And then my colors go here and there. Now for the opposite side. These are going to go here. Turn the whole thing because that's the side that my cut is on. We're going to take these out of this pile, put them over here. We're going to take these out of this pile. They go right there. These are going to go there. These are going to go there. All of my colors are going to come off of here, go there, and all my backgrounds there. Spin the whole thing. And now I'm going to sew 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time. Why did I count? I knew that there was going to be 4. You get 2 blocks per every 2 colors. So, you know, if you cut just 2 pieces, you get 2 blocks. You know what I mean? So we're going to get 4 blocks, but we're going to chain piece all of this. And I'm going to show you how real quickly. Let's get this done. All right, so chain piecing time. I'm going to take all of these right here. Just grabbed these to start. And I'm going to run them through. So I'm just going to line them up. I'm always making sure that I got that little tail hanging out on both ends. Let's slide all these through. Little tail. Little tail. Make sure that their tails are there. Making sure everything's correct. All right. All those are on, so now I'm just going to go ahead now and grab a different unit and sew all these together. So now I'm just working on the opposites. last one, and then we're going to back stack. All right, so what I'm going to do is, this was my bottom piece, so I'm going to do this. So if you had multiple pieces of color, you want to keep them in order. Just going to keep everything in the order of which I sewed. All right, and now we are on these ones first, so I'm just going to stack these up right here, and we're going to sew the opposite side on them. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my other unit, and we're going to go ahead and start sewing these through. This is pretty much the more efficient way to get a ton of blocks made if you're using just 2 colors, because you can make the Hunter Star out of 2 colors. It usually looks really, really beautiful if it's just 2 colors, but I kind of like the scrappy and layer cake, you know, colored look of things. So I think, to me, it looks really good. All right, so here's the other unit. Again, we're just making those, you know, vampire teeth. It's going to go on like this, and we're making vampire teeth. So I'm going to turn the whole unit so that makes it easier for me to sew these on. Again, I'm leaving those little pieces, because if you don't, it will not line up. So we're just making sure that we leave those little pieces. Oh, something happened with my thread. Oh, I ran out of bobbin. That's what it is. Let's change that. All right. 2 more pieces. And last piece. Oops, I almost sewed that on wrong. You know, it's really, really, really easy to think that this is going to be right there, but that's not what it is. It's that right there. You got to make sure you still have your straight line. I haven't messed up like that yet, but I just have to remember that's how it goes. That's why I always lay my pieces back out. So I'm going to stack them again to keep them in order, so that this is the piece that went to this is always on the bottom. So the matching piece to that one. So if you're trying to match up your colors, you want to keep them stacked in the order of which you picked them up and sewed them. All right, so there's all my vampire teeth for that. And then here's all my vampire teeth for this pile. And we're going to go to the iron, keeping them in order. I'm going to press all these towards my background, and then all those other pieces towards my background, keeping them in order. So I'm just going to turn them upside down, and then they'll be top to bottom again. Okay, now that they are all pressed, we're going to grab the corner here and the corner here, and we're going to chain piece all these through. So I'm going to put one on one side, one on the other. Again, I just eyeball mine, but you can find your center like I showed you earlier in the video. Right now we are just chain piecing everything. Remember also that all of this is on the bias. So when you are pressing, this is all stretchy, all sides of this whole entire thing. The only thing that is straight a grain is the outside edges of everything. So try not to pull, tug, stretch anything, because it is all stretchy. Everything is as stretchy as it gets. It all works out. Everything presses nice and flat. You could even start your fabric or start your blocks once they're made. Because if it's a pre-cut, I don't know, if you want to start your pre-cuts, you can. Like I said, you'll lose like a tiny little bit, but in your width, but you should be able to, from a 10-inch square, get an 8.5-inch block every single time. You could also press your seams open if you want to. I don't. They nest really nicely, so it really doesn't matter. All right, next section, I'm just going to grab the 2 pieces, and we're going to chain piece these through. And then we'll take all of this to press again, to press everything towards the pieces we need it to. And then we'll chain piece the centers. All we have to do is keep everything in order. So if you were using directional fabric, you know, make sure you restack all your blocks and your directionalness of your fabric after you cut them. So if you want to cut them singular to make that easier to do, then I would do that. So if you had like stripes or something, you know, and you wanted to keep all of them going in the same direction, then I would say cut singular. And sew each individual block, you know, you get 2 blocks at a time, obviously. So, you know, just stack them nicely. All right, so I'm going to keep these in order. This was the bottom, so it goes with the bottom of the opposite, you know, direction. Just throwing them out of the way. I'm going to go press everything again towards my background. And then on these ones, it goes towards the background that way. All right, here we go, over to the iron. While I was at the iron, I went ahead and paired all my pieces. So literally, I just need to take 2 and put them together. I'm going to nest that seam. Sew up to it, stop. You can pin these first, and it probably may be easier for you. I never do. I'm really lazy about that kind of stuff, as you know, if you've been following me a long time. It's probably best to line the whole thing up, you know, nest your seams before you start sewing, but I'm even lazier and I don't even do that. Next 2. And the last 2 pieces. All right. Come on. There we go. All right, and as you remember, we're pressing all of these towards this black or background. So it's going to all be pressed towards that background. So I'm going to go ahead now and do that, and I will meet you at the cutting table. Now for their quick trim. It's literally just one right after the other now. So easy to do. There's one. Oops. So see how this one got a little wonky? It is okay because, again, like I said, as long as it fits within the 8.5-inch square, you can see, and it does all the way around. Oops. Then that's all that I care about. With the 10-inch squares that are fully 10 inches, unlike mine, you will get more, you'll have more cutoff. All right, line the next one up. Again, I'm just lining my diagonal with the diagonal on the block to the ruler. All right. And one more, and I'll have completed the blocks that I needed to make today's quilt. All right, so there we have it. That is how you chain piece your blocks. Okay, next step, I have now made all the blocks that I need to make for my quilt. I'm going to be doing 6 across by 7 down. I have 44 squares here, so I only need 42 of them. Okay, like I said, the more you add, the more you can make. I had 22 color and 22 of my background, but you can do a whole layer cake, which is 42 pieces and 42 pieces. So layer cake of prints and a layer cake of solid, and you'll have a quilt that is 12 across by 14 down. That should be about 96 by 112. Like I said, you can do as many blocks as you want. This is 10-inch squares, 10-inch squares. So your backgrounds are 10-inch and your solids are 10-inch, or I mean your print. Why do I always do that? Anyways, let's lay these out. So the layout is quite simple. You're always going to touch your pretty fabric to your background fabric, but all fabric is pretty. So your print to your background, background to print, and you're going to create your stars. Hunter star is your arrows and your stars. All right, let's put this thing together and call it a lap quilt. And if you did everything correctly, putting all of your seams towards your background fabric, when you put them right sides together, these seams are going to nest right up. They're in opposite directions, and then these two will nest right up in opposite directions. So let me sew this together. And you will see that the points are good right here and good right there. So let's sew the rest of this row. All of my seams are going either to the right or to the left. This row just so happens to be going to the left because the previous row went to the right, which will make it easy to nest up the seams when we do the rows together. As you can see again, they're at the points, perfect, just the way we want them. Next piece. The blocks are exactly the same size, so they should nest right up, line right up. Again, right now I'm just kind of finger smushing them. Last piece for this row, and then we'll assemble the rows. Again, see, these seams are in opposite directions. They literally land right on top of each other. All right, I'm going to press this and we can start attaching the rows. To attach the rows, I have them right sides together. My end should nest right up. I'm going to start that real quick to hold it. You can pin if you want, but every single junction should land right on top of each other. So then we have this junction right here. Then I have this junction right here. Then I have this junction right here. All the way down. Again, you can pin yours if you need to. I did not. So I'm kind of just nesting as I go. Whatever works for you, that's what works for you. This is how I do mine. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and press this row and then get the rest of them together. So wasn't that an easy make? I'm telling you, you can do this. If you are a beginner, you can make this quilt. It is very simple to do. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you go out and make this quilt. Have fun, enjoy, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.